Tonight, a push to impeach the president.
The person who's running the executive branch is a deranged, unhinged, dangerous president of the United States.
The latest on the continuing fallout from last week's Capitol Hill riots. Plus,
they absolutely turned us away. They said, no, you cannot. We're not doing any. We don't hardly have enough vaccines.
Cities and states scramble to provide coronavirus vaccines. And a look at why some in the African American community are hesitant about receiving a COVID vaccine. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
President Donald Trump moving closer to a possible second impeachment. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Tara Mergener. Tonight, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying she has the votes needed to impeach the president. More than 200 House lawmakers say they'll approve the measure which states President Trump is guilty of, quote, inciting an insurrection.
Still, she's passing the political hot potato, if you will, to Vice President Mike Pence, giving him an ultimatum to immediately remove his boss by way of the 25th Amendment. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has tonight's top story and joins us now. Ben, what's the likelihood President Trump's cabinet would remove him from office?
Well, John and Tara, Vice President Mike Pence has given no indication of moving against President Trump. As a result, the vote could happen as early as Wednesday. And if that's the case, the Senate trial would begin on January 19th, one day before President-elect Biden's inauguration.
Almighty God, speak into this storm. Allow your Holy Spirit to descend upon the chaos and minister to our hearts.
After lawmakers listened to House Chaplain Margaret Kibben's prayer,
Madam Speaker,
Democrats formally introduced a 4-page bill to impeach President Trump for a second time, another first in our nation's history. In a move seemingly out of the Old West, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi giving Vice President Pence 24 hours to make his decision.
I like the 25th Amendment because it gets rid of him. He's out of office. But there is strong support in the Congress for impeaching the president a second time.
Republican Senators Pat Toomey and Lisa Murkowski have joined Democrats urging Trump to resign. Republican Senators Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz also facing calls to resign for their roles in objecting the certification of electors from states Biden won. Let's go! Trump is blamed for inciting the violence last week, and although he told supporters to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard, the president added,
"We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore."
The president also later tweeted, "Be peaceful," but it was too late. The attack left 5 people dead, including a Capitol Police officer. First Lady Melania Trump released a statement saying she's disappointed and disheartened with what happened last week, adding, "I absolutely condemn the violence that has occurred in our nation's capital. Violence is never acceptable."
Now, federal officers continue to track down those involved in the riots. The Department of Justice says hundreds of individuals could be charged in the attack. John, Tara?
Ben, thank you. The National Park Service has closed down the Washington Monument ahead of Joe Biden's inauguration. That as safety concerns continue in the nation's capital after last week's riots. Mayor Muriel Bowser is asking the federal government for help to provide protection measures for Inauguration Day. Bowser sent a letter to the president Sunday requesting he declare a pre-emergency disaster for the district.
This is necessary because the inauguration poses several unprecedented challenges that exceed the scope of our traditional planning processes. The COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the domestic terror attack on the United States Capitol.
The National Guard has already deployed more than 6,000 troops to D.C., and that number will increase to 10,000 by this weekend.
Well, just 9 days until Inauguration Day, and now we know the ceremony's theme, America United, according to the Associated Press. The Presidential Inauguration Committee says it, quote, reflects the beginning of a new national journey that restores the soul of America, brings the country together and creates a path to a brighter future. Biden's inauguration as the 46th president takes place next Wednesday. Meanwhile, he continues to build his administration, today announcing veteran diplomat William Burns to lead the CIA. For 33 years, Burns has served in U.S. foreign policy, working under both Republican and Democratic presidents.
All right now, joining us now is veteran journalist Ray Suarez and CBN senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon. Jennifer, the announcement of Biden's America United theme comes as Democrats are going full steam ahead with impeachment. Can they have it both ways?
I don't think so, Tara. Joe Biden had a great opportunity day one. As soon as the votes were tallied and it looked like he was the winner, he had an opportunity to come out and say, look, Americans, I also care about voter fraud. I also want to make sure that we can have full faith in our elections. And I promise you, in my first 100 days, I'm going to take a look at this. He didn't do that. That was a huge missed opportunity on Biden's part. And so I think now it's hard for supporters of Donald Trump's to, look at his inauguration theme, the fact that he wants to restore the soul of America, which I'm not exactly sure what that means. But I think it's very difficult, especially as you've reported with, this looming impeachment happening in the House. Also, if Biden is the leader of the Democratic Party, it seems like he should be coordinating with Speaker Pelosi and the future leader in the Senate to, kind of decide how he wants this to go if he truly is serious about unifying America.
Ray, Jennifer says a missed opportunity. Some say that this is an opportunity to make a statement. What's your take on this?
Well, blaming Joe Biden for not apologizing to the people who say he didn't win the election, it's an interesting take. It's not one that I subscribe to. When Republicans win an election by a whisker, they run the country like they got 85% of the vote. And they expect Democrats to act like they lost. And I don't think that's going to happen this time. The mood of the Democratic Party and the victorious coalition that is sending Joe Biden to the White House doesn't have that mood. But it should be noted that the Biden administration transition team is sending signals to Pelosi et al. They don't want a trial during the inauguration. They don't want a trial during the first 100 days when the Biden administration is trying to hit its marks, calm down a country that's dealing with two enormous crises, an economic meltdown, and more people than died in 9/11 dying every day from COVID-19. Joe Biden, his long career is not as some firebrand, some renegade. He's generally a consensus figure and has been throughout his career. I expect that's what he'll be talking about on Inauguration Day and in his first days as president.
A number of GOP members are backing the resignation of the president now. Jennifer, what are the political ramifications the party has to consider in this?
Well, there are many, and they are different for every member of Congress, quite frankly. But I think in the next coming weeks, in the coming months, in the next 2 years, you're going to have Republicans faced with a very different reality. They are going to be existing in a federal government that is controlled solely by Democrats. And so I think what we're going to be seeing, again, in the coming weeks and months is Republicans uniting against Democrats. And it's very easy for them to rail against. They don't necessarily have to be united in their policies or even their ideas about the president, about President Trump, in order to be united in their going against the new Democratic rule in Washington. So I think you are going to see the party unite. But in terms of how they feel about the president or what's best for them in terms of whether they support President Trump or call for his resignation, that's different for every member.
Ray, real quickly here, conservatives cry foul for social media companies closing the president's account. Is this a double standard and attack on free speech, as some claim, even as the ACLU warns of unchecked power?
The first 5 words of the First Amendment are Congress shall make no law. Private companies are not bound. There are traditions, there are ideas about freedom of speech, But you know, these are publicly traded companies. There are also reputational costs. Marriott is stopping giving to the candidates who backed not affirming the Biden victory.
Right.
Companies as diverse as Google and American Express are saying no more donations if you said Biden didn't win. We're in a different era.
All right, Ray Suarez, Jennifer Wishon, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Hesitation over COVID vaccines, why some in the black community are shying away from the shots when we return.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Well, the numbers are simply staggering. 1 in 15 Americans has now tested positive for COVID-19.
As the death toll continues to grow, the race to get people vaccinated is running into some major hurdles. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips is with us now. Eric.
Tara, John, even though demand for the vaccine is extremely high, officials say doses are going unused, some sitting on shelves, others actually being thrown away. So now the scramble is on to do something about that. Monday afternoon, President-elect Biden receiving his second dose of the coronavirus vaccine. This at a time when COVID cases and demand for the vaccines hit an all-time high.
Number one priority is getting vaccine in people's arms, like we just did today, as rapidly as we can.
Countless Americans eligible for the vaccine unable to secure a shot.
Absolutely turned us away. They said, no, you cannot. We're not doing any. We don't hardly have enough vaccines for the people who have appointments.
Now President-elect Biden declares he will accelerate the process as soon as he's sworn in, planning to release nearly all available doses instead of holding back second shots.
We've got to start getting these vaccines out to states. There is a balancing act here, but given the time we're in, I think this is the right move.
And there is hope as leaders nationwide work to meet the demand.
We now have the freedom to vaccinate anyone over 75, anybody over 75.
New York City is now home to 5 vaccination sites, 2 of them operating 24/7. Governor Andrew Cuomo loosening rules for distribution after reports of doses expiring before getting used. Some of the new groups to qualify: pharmacy cashiers and stock workers. In Michigan, that group includes first responders, teachers, and those 65 and older. Officials in San Antonio are using the Alamo Dome. 9,000 shots were booked in just 6 minutes by Texans seeking the shot. In Florida, where some of the most vulnerable seniors have been turned away, 500 of them were vaccinated Sunday with no problems.
It's nothing to it, as crucial as things are today with this virus.
Yet, as access grows, so does demand, especially in the growing epicenter of Los Angeles, where hospitals are overwhelmed.
I've been here 21 years, and I've seen more people pass away in the past week, in the past couple weeks, really, than I almost like combined in all of my career as a nurse.
Among those who recently died from the virus, Tuskegee Airman Theodore Lumpkin Jr., who passed away just shy of his 101st birthday. Officials are bracing for another spike in numbers as we still await expected fallout from family gatherings over the holidays. John and Tara.
The U.S. is facing its biggest vaccination campaign to date, but as more doses become available, some are more adamant than ever they won't participate.
As CBN's Charlene Aaron reports, distrust in the vaccine runs especially deep in the Black community.
According to a report by the National Urban League, Blacks are infected with COVID-19 at nearly 3 times the rate of whites, and Blacks are twice as likely to die from it. Still, many don't plan to get the vaccine.
I would not take the COVID-19 vaccine just because it kind of came out really fast. Just not certain about, all the potential side effects that could come with the vaccine.
I already have pre-existing health issues. I would not want to put myself at risk by taking a vaccine that has not had enough time to be developed, in my opinion.
A Pew Research survey found only 32% of Black American adults answered they would either definitely or probably take a COVID-19 vaccine. And according to a report by the COVID Collaborative, just 14% trust the vaccine's safety. To build confidence among communities of color, a group of Black health professionals put out this message.
Dear Black America, we love you. We affirm that Black lives matter. We have locked arms in an initiative to place the health and safety of our community at the heart of the national conversation about COVID-19.
Dr. Reed Tuckson says a vaccine can't come soon enough, given the devastating impact he has witnessed.
We know that this pandemic is now out of control across this country, and we are dying at such high rates, just as the rest of the nation is now dying at extraordinary rates.
Tuckson admits much of the hesitation goes back to the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, a 40-year government study involving hundreds of Black men. The men, mostly sharecroppers suffering from syphilis, were monitored but not treated. Many died, went blind, or experienced other severe health problems.
There are absolutely legitimate reasons why we would be, as people, distrustful of government, distrustful of the health enterprise. The experience with Tuskegee back in the 30s.
A history that still haunts many.
We've been used, experimented on for various, vaccines or diseases, unethically in the past. That's something I just don't want to have to go through. My ancestors went through it. That's just something I don't want to have to go through personally.
Dawn Baker, a local news anchor in Savannah, chose a different response, taking part in clinical trials for the vaccine, something she sees as part of the solution to this deadly problem.
I understand the fear. I know the history. I know about the Tuskegee experiment, which was absolutely brutal and lasted 40 years in this country. And even worse, after they experimented on those Black men, once the cure came out, they wouldn't even give them the cure. I would not have just gone to sign up to do this.
Tuckson also points out much has changed.
We are in a different position, I think, when it comes to this issue, that we cannot, in my opinion, allow our historical issues to cause us to take actions that will lead to our demise and our death and misery and suffering in our community.
In the meantime, he says the medical community must earn the trust of those suffering from COVID, as well as from the malpractice from the past.
We have to make sure that at every level of health and medical care delivery, that the people that are doing that are comporting themselves with the highest level of integrity that respects the life and the dignity and the worth and the value of every single person, and particularly people of color.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
A nation on lockdown. A look at the steps Israel is taking to fight a surge in COVID cases. That story when Faith Nation comes back.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
The coronavirus is certainly hitting many countries hard, including Israel.
That's right, Tara. The government there has increased restrictions, imposing a third national lockdown.
As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the goal is to stop the spread of the virus and reduce the recent increase in COVID cases.
These latest rules take effect as Israel already deals with its third national lockdown. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saw the need for greater restrictions.
Hospitals are warning us that we are entering the most dangerous wave since the outbreak of the plague. The Ministry of Health and the experts warn us that we are in a state of emergency and that if we do not act immediately, hundreds of Israelis will die and maybe even more.
This enhanced lockdown will continue for at least 2 more weeks and means closing all schools except special education, most businesses except necessities like grocery stores and pharmacies, and all workplaces except essential services. Each day, Israel is seeing about 8,000 new cases, and authorities blame this increase in part on the British mutation of COVID spreading in the country. Of the current 60,000 active cases, more than 800 people are in serious condition, and the death total stands at around 3,500. One group representing hundreds of Israeli doctors, professors, and scientists believes these new measures are counterproductive, urging the government to reconsider. Their statement reads, "This destructive third lockdown will cause severe damage to hundreds of thousands of households in Israel. It will lead to another rise in domestic violence, dropout of more students from the education system, delay further diagnoses of cancer, increase rates of depression and anxiety, increase the loneliness of the elderly, and many other heavy damages." They propose an approach that protects the vulnerable while reopening the economy to the less vulnerable. Meanwhile, authorities continue an aggressive push to vaccinate the population, leading to one of the fastest inoculation campaigns in the world. Israel now leads the world in per capita vaccinations.
We have here about
30 spots where nurses from our hospital are vaccinating the entire population, not only Tel Aviv, but we are doing that in a pace of around 5,000 to 7,000 a day here in this huge operation.
So far, more than 1.5 million Israelis have received the shot. The goal is to achieve herd immunity and become the first in the world to fully reopen its economy. The belief is that Israel can reach that goal after at least 5 million people have been either vaccinated or recover from a COVID infection. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chris. A surprise snowstorm stuns residents in one of the states perhaps least expected. We'll show you where when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Well, finally tonight, it's been cold here in the nation's capital, Tara, but one thing we haven't seen a lot of is snow.
I'm kind of okay with that.
I figured.
But that is not the case in Texas, of all places, where a few areas saw a snow day Sunday, shocking some who live in the Lone Star State.
We've been in this area since the early 90s, and we've never had this much snow. Look, you have to stop and look out and cross the countryside and realize how blessed we are and how really majestic it is.
That majestic snowstorm hit throughout central Texas, including Austin, Houston, and my former city of Waco. The National Weather Service says as much as 6 inches fell in some areas, closing several school districts today. And John, I know I was getting a lot of pictures on my Facebook feed. They were loving every minute of it.
Makes you miss home, huh?
Just a little bit.
Thanks for watching Faith Nation.
We'll see you tomorrow.